Can they hear me? No? Yeah? Okay. Good morning. Good morning. I am Sarah Feinberg, the chair of this committee. I do not have a nameplate yet, so that's why I'm introducing myself to you. So let's get started. Good morning. Honored to be here today, serving as the newly appointed chair of the Transit and Bus Committee. Very much looking forward to working with President Byford and his transit team. I've started to get to know them over recent months, which has been a pleasure for me, and I can say that I don't think there's anyone who is more committed to modernizing and improving our system and improving service for our ridership than this team. I'm also thrilled and honored that my vice chair on this committee is Polly Trottenberg. I've had the pleasure and honor of working with Polly on and off for several years on transportation policy issues, and I'm thrilled to be working closely with her again. I view leading this committee very much as a team effort, and I'm honored that Polly will be my partner. My priority for this committee is that we do all we can to both lead and support the effort to modernize our system and improve service for the public. I intend for us to conduct our work in a manner that is respectful of each other, of the committed workers of the MTA, and of the public. I intend to lead a committee that's straightforward and honest with the public about the challenges that we face, the options available to us to address them. And you have my commitment that I will be as transparent in our work as we can be. We all know the challenges facing the system are significant. I believe the rewards will be greater as we build upon the improvements of the past year to transform service delivery, accessibility, and customer service. I look forward to hearing today's updates and anticipate sharing a productive and informative meeting going forward. And Polly, I'd like to recognize you as my vice chair. Thank you for your service, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is nice to work with you again. We had the pleasure of serving together at USDOT in the Obama administration. And of course, I share your tremendous gratitude with Andy and the folks at New York City Transit who have been doing a great job in seeing some real improvements in the system. And obviously, New York City DOT, we work very closely with them. And we will be working closely with folks here at MTA and specifically bridges and tunnels, as we start to implement congestion pricing, which obviously will have tremendously good results for the whole system. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Polly. With that, let's move along to the committee business. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are 18 members of the public registered to speak.
Perfect.
For our public speakers, I'd like to remind you that everyone has 2 minutes in the interest of time and fairness. Please be aware of the clock in the front of the room. A warning light will show at 30 seconds, reminding you to please conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Orrin Getz, followed by Marie Bowden, followed by Jason Pinheiro.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Orrin Getz, and I'm on the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. Now that the Hudson Yards project is open, we need to look on how people can get to Hudson Yards. From the east, there is an extension of the number 7 subway line from Times Square to the new station at 34th Street. We hope this is a successful way of providing adequate public transportation to this project. From the west, however, there are big problems on how to get to this new project that just opened. The exclusive bus lane in the Port Authority bus terminal is beyond capacity, and there's no way of adding additional passengers to bring them into this project. Also, New Jersey Transit Northeast Corridor rail service is operating beyond capacity. Many of the trains are so crowded that people are packed into the vestibules, which is a very unsafe situation. What we need to look into is extending the number 7 subway line out to Secaucus. That would be a good solution for this problem. The city did prepare a study of how this could be done several years ago. We'd like the MTA to look into this project and see how it could be added to a future capital program. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marie Bowden, followed by Jason Pinheiro.
On Friday, we went to the Philharmonic concert at 11 a.m. because it's easier to go during the day than at night. And then we took 2 subways to the Hudson Yards. The subway was being cleaned as we got out, and other than that. But the major what I want to speak about today is the lines on the road and the failure of New York City DOT to do their job. I've spoken about this years and years ago. They absolutely refuse to follow the manual as currently written. The documentation is in their files. I've done it for years, and nothing gets done. As much as it looks like they're doing a job, they're not. They put the proper crosswalk in and fail to take out the old one so the driver doesn't see the proper crosswalk. The signs on the East River Drive have been wrong for years, and the lines have been wrong for years, and they're still wrong. So who fixes it? I can't. I'm going to be 85 and I'm failing. It's your job to get it fixed. Now, not in the future, before I die.
Our next speaker is Jason Pinheiro, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning, Andy Byford. I want to welcome Chairman Freinsberg. We hope that you will be more vocal in the months to come. And Sarah, we thank you for all the work that you do, but there has been concerns about the lack of service during the Cherry Blossom Festival, Roosevelt Island. Why Roosevelt Island Station on the F line had to be partially closed and leaving thousands of commuters stranded. Why there wasn't shuttle buses provided to and from Queens. And I'm gonna speak briefly about an incident that it was a little bit unfortunate that I had this past Friday. That I was at DeKalb Avenue Station on the 4th Avenue line, and my cell phone fell to the tracks. And I didn't take the risk of going into the tracks to retrieve my cell phone. So I went to the nearest help point, station help point that was near the end of the platform. I informed the station agent about the incident, and the batch number of that station agent is 15963. She was pretty helpful, and I was very unfortunate to retrieve my cell phone within 30 minutes. So this is a lesson that everybody that drops something or drops something by accident, don't take the risk. Your life is worth more than that. So that's all I have to say for this month.
The next speaker is Lisa Daglian, followed by Aisling Wharton.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the new members who are here today. Good to see all the rest of you as well. My name is Lisa Daglian, and I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. First, I really want to address how just sickening it was to hear about the attacks on the transit workers over the weekend. And we echo your call for increasing police presence on subways and buses. To that end, we're also concerned about potential ramifications of the new bail system that would allow recidivists to get back to do the things that they do that we don't want them to do much faster. So we are concerned about that, and hopefully the increased police presence will help to address that. But we're very pleased to hear about the new service, the service improvements, and the announcement that was made last week. And congratulations to President Byford and Sally and Sarah and the entire team for really making those efforts, and to see what the extent that Safe Seconds and this Subway Action Plan can make. We're really looking forward to seeing what can happen with Fast Forward. However, because of the new metrics, the performance metrics, that will take subway on-time performance from 5 minutes to 2 minutes, we're going to see a huge change in those numbers at a time when confidence in the system is beginning to rebuild. So we ask that you allow the rider representatives to sit at the table as the MTA and transit have conversations with the legislature to bring those numbers into something that's a little more realistic and out of New York City's book, not necessarily completely literally ripped out of the pages of London's book. And we also hope that those service improvements will be seen on buses. We're looking forward to the Queens bus redesign, which will be attending tonight, cameras and enforcement in bus lanes, and support allowing Access-a-Ride to use bus lanes, as has been discussed in today's news. Thank you.
The next speaker is Aisling Wharton, followed by Daisy Paez.
Thank you for the opportunity. I've used Access-a-Ride for 7 years. I want to congratulate you on creating an amazing system, finally offering equal transport opportunities to disabled people. The e-hail program allowed me to participate in society again and even improved my health. Before I had e-hail, my use of Access-a-Ride was limited due to the stress of trying to manage trip times and spending 2.5 hours traveling for what should be a 45-minute ride. The long, bumpy rides in the vans with terrible suspension caused inflammation in my spine and worsening of my health. I had horrific experiences of needing to wait sometimes over half an hour in the blazing sun or in the freezing cold for broker services that sometimes did not show up, since we as customers are expected to be outside or else they will drive away. E-hail rescued us from that humiliating, undignified nightmare, and in the last month, with these supposed enhanced broker services, we've gone back to the dark ages. As a mother of 2 children, I need to be able to make trips in a timely manner in order to make my appointments and take care of my children. I have not been able to make any same-day plans, and I have a special needs child going to school in a different borough. I need to be able to travel across boroughs, if not by Access-a-Ride, by taxi authorization. I've gotten calls to pick up my daughter from school when she was sick, and I could not go get her. When I spoke to Mr. Byford at the town hall meeting last fall, you told me that you believe disabled people should have the same rights as everybody else to choose to travel as they desire on the same day. Mr. Byford, last month you said that you are a customer-led organization and you're determined to give us that fully accessible system we deserve. If so, why are you doing away with the e-hail program? So its costs, we are told. According to Mr. Scott Stringer's report in 2016, the average taxi cost for Access-a-Ride is $18, while the average van cost $67. It would take about a 4-fold increase in ridership for e-hail to be more expensive. I find it hard to believe it costs more overall, as most disabled people find 2 trips a day tiring enough. I say, show us the numbers. And for the sake of my children and my health, on behalf of all the elderly and disabled, I ask that I can have the choice of booking curb for my trips, as this is the only way that I can make it to my appointments on time and take care of my family and recover my health. Thank you.
The next speaker is Daisy Paez, followed by Francis Sussman.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Daisy Paez. I'm here representing SALT, Senior Advocacy Leadership Team. I am a lifelong resident of the Lower East Side. I am a senior and I am a district leader. I have here nearly 5,000 signatures with the same concern. The future of the M14A and M14D bus services is under review. Under serious consideration is the proposal to eliminate the current local stops to be replaced by express bus services that would eliminate numbers of stops along Avenue A and Avenue D and along Grand Street. This decision basically would make buses faster at the expense of serving the needs of the residents in these neighborhoods. Especially affected by this proposal are the seniors who rely on these buses to a great degree. The M14A bus particularly is considered the granny line because of the numbers of seniors using the service relying on walkers. This bus service is the lifeline of our community that is eliminated, if eliminated or reduced would force residents, especially seniors, to walk long distance to the nearest subway stops at Delancey or 2nd Avenue. We reach out to you to reconsider the proposal of eliminating these bus stops and perhaps just add a select bus system in the same manner as is presented on the M15 bus line with both local and select bus. This, we believe, would address both the need for speed while not sacrificing the much-needed local service for the ones that would be affected, most negatively affected. Thank you for allowing me to address the board. Thank you.
The next speaker is Frances Sussman, followed by Tommy Loeb.
My name is Frances Sussman. I'm a resident of the Lower East Side and a member of the Grand Coalition of Seniors. I attended both informational presentations at the 7th Precinct and the 14th Street Y. I don't know where the MTA has gotten their demographics or if they have used them at all to count the number of seniors who are served by those local stops. And they don't seem to have the understanding of moving those stops a block, maybe two, as people told me, is a hardship for people who are elderly or in some way impaired. Thank you.
The next speaker is Tommy Loeb, followed by Jose Ortiz.
Thank you. I am a 45-year resident of the Lower East Side. The M14A and D are not crosstown buses. They are local buses that serve a local community. They are numbered 14, but that's not where half their service is. For those of you who don't know, our community is officially recognized as a NORC community. That means a naturally occurring retirement community, officially designated by the state of having a high proportion of seniors and elderly. The data you presented, your own data, said that 40% of the time of the buses is taken up in traffic. 35% is moving, but only 25% is taken at stops. So by eliminating a few stops serving elderly, disabled, and children, you're saving a minute or 2 minutes, and you're disenfranchising elderly and other people who don't have alternatives. Walking is not an option. There's no data. When I went to the informational meetings, I asked, how much time would you save? There's no answer. How many elderly and disabled people will be disenfranchised? There's no data. You've never done the numbers. So I don't understand how you can make a decision disenfranchising elderly and disabled people without data. Your data only shows, by the way, the 10% improvement for people. The other thing, Commissioner Trottenberg, one of the reasons the bus is so slow is because the Grand and Clinton, the westbound service, is tied up in traffic. For 2 years ago, I was at a town hall with you where you promised that there would be a survey and faster and implementation of new traffic patterns on Grand Street. We're still waiting. And Mr. Byford, I hope it was a mistake that your quote in the paper said that we were being NIMBY by asking for the elimination, not supporting the elimination of eliminating every other bus stop. I hope that was a mistake, and you'll apologize to the people of the Lower East Side.
The next speaker is Jose Ortiz, followed by Kevin Zhang.
Yes, good morning, members of the board. Recognizing the phenomenon of the increased aging of our population, New York City and New York State declared a commitment to secure the livability of seniors in their neighborhoods. To this end, in 2007, Mayor Michael Bloomberg adopted the Age-Friendly District Initiative. In December 2017, Governor Andrew Cuomo proclaimed that New York was the first state in the nation to declare itself an age-friendly state and adopted the Age-Friendly District Initiative. Today, we are here to address a major feature of that very concept, public transportation, that if disregarded would negatively affect the very livability of seniors and would run counter to that commitment. Seniors in the Lower East Side community, particularly along Grand Street, rely overwhelmingly on the services of the M14 lines. This is an area that is a virtual desert of the services of public transportation. The M14A is the only link between this community and the rest of the city heading north and west. The M14A line itself has been referred to as the Granny Line for the number of seniors using it and doing so many times with the help of walkers and other instruments. Much has been raised about the slowness of these lines as the second slowest in the system. I submit that perhaps a factor may be the times that buses have to kneel to allow seniors to board or to assist the handicapped onto the proper location on the buses. Limiting this vital service would disproportionately affect our seniors and handicapped in the Lower East Side and would contradict the stated commitments of this board, this city, and this state. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Kevin Zhang, followed by Susan Bowen.
Hello, good morning to Ferrento Ferrer and Andy Byford. My name is Kevin Zhang. I would like to consider for the L train 14th Street tunnel shutdown on nights and weekends and free out-of-system transfer from 14th Street on the G train to Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center Station. Since the L train tunnel has one tube, will be closed on nights and weekends during reconstruction by the Hurricane Sandy. After one tube will be complete and then move to another tube until two tubes will be complete, and then the L trains are running in both directions on summer 2020. When I walk from 14th Street on the G train to Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center Station, has 2 blocks over and almost closer to the station. Free out-of-system transfer needs to be added from Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center on the 2, 3, 4, 5, B, D, and Q, and R trains to 14th Street on the G train by using our Metro cards during the L train 14th Street tunnel shutdown. Thank you and have a nice day.
The next speaker is Susan Bowen, followed by Carolyn Laskow.
Good morning. My name is Susan Bowen. I'm here just as a private citizen. I'm an M14A bus rider, and I probably don't have much more to say that hasn't already been said, but please don't consider this bus line to be a normal crosstown bus, because it's not. As been said, at least half of the line, distance of the line, goes north and south and serves local communities, residential communities. As been said, have many seniors that will be discriminated against if their stops are removed. So please reconsider this plan of removing the local stops. We know the bus is slow. We don't mind it going faster, but not at the expense of losing our local stops. Thank you.
The next speaker is Carolyn Laskow, followed by Deborah Elliott Bloodman.
Thank you. I'm Carolyn Laskow. I'm a district leader on the Lower East Side representing Grand Street Democrats. I have lived down there on Grand Street for 16 years. I've been a district leader for 2 years, and I have never in my time on the Lower East Side experienced such a consensus among my neighbors about saving our local bus stops along the M14A and 14D bus lines. We've heard it is a lifeline for the community. That's true. We've also heard it's a granny line for the community. That's also true. And I would invite you to come down at around 7:55 on a weekday morning and see that it is also an unofficial school bus line for so many of the children in the neighborhood who travel all the way from the FDR to all points within and around Manhattan. At the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, in the darkest hours after school during the winter, this is the safest way for our children, our elderly community, our disabled community to get to and from our neighborhood. And to pretend that these parts of our community aren't essential is disrespectful to the Lower East Side. We see that there's some kiosks going up already for the SBS service, and you know, we are open to doing the SBS format of putting in our Metro cards ahead of time. Perhaps that would speed up the bus service, but as you've heard, not at the expense of these local bus stops along Grand Street, along Avenue A, and also along the 14D line as well. We need our local bus stops. We need more buses, if anything, not fewer. They are packed to capacity every hour of the day and night. Thank you.
The next speaker is Deborah Elliott Bloodman, followed by Suzanne Chi.
Good morning. My name is Deborah Early Bloodman, and I'm here this morning just to keep reiterating that I need the e-health service, and I cannot live without it. I try, and I'm always late for my appointments. It depletes my quality of living. So please, do not get rid of the e-health service for the disabled. Thank you.
The next speaker is Suzanne Chi, followed by Jean Ryan.
Good morning. My name is Susan Chi. I'm an advocate with Sydney Centers for Independence of the Disabled, New York. Today, I'm here to share a terrible experience that I have with the train. On April 8th, I was doing travel training, learning how to take the train from my house to the MTA. First, I took the train to 14th Street. Then I needed to transfer to the 4 train going downtown. When I tried to get on the 4 train, the front wheel of my chair got stuck between the platform and the train. I fell forward due to the platform and the train was not level. I think every station needs to be evaluated for safety purpose before putting an elevator. Having an elevator are critical for people with disability. People with disability not only have to have access to the station, but also need to be able to get on the train safely. In addition, all elevator stations need to be checked for accessibility. I would like a board member to take a trip with me on the train so you can see what I have to go through when traveling on the train. I would never take the train ever again after a terrible experience.
The next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Inez Delañez.
I'm going over there. Yeah. Hi, I'm Jean Ryan. I'm president of Disabled in Action, excuse me, and I'm an accessoride rider. Accessoride is a mess now for everyone, not just people who were taking advanced e-health. It's a mess for everyone. It's 8 to 10 minutes on the phone waiting for the people to pick up when you have a problem with today's trip. When you have a problem with today's trip, you don't want to wait 8 to 10 minutes just to get a person to pick up. And that reminds me of how it used to be with First Transit. When First Transit was doing the call center, they got rid of First Transit because it was so bad. Now I don't know what you'd have to get rid of because there's so much that's going wrong with the system. Shared rides are okay if we're near each other and we're going in the same direction. But you don't pick up somebody in Bay Ridge and take them to Mill Basin on the way to Manhattan. That's the opposite direction. You don't go west to go east, and you don't go east to go west, north to go south. But that's what Accessoride is doing. And it's called an elliptical motion, an ellipsis, like egg-shaped. Who does egg shapes when they're traveling? No one. If you got on the subway and it went the wrong direction to go, and you were going the other direction, you know, and it would be on the front page of every paper, and there would be demonstrations in the street. This is the way we feel. Everybody's being so upset because we can't get where we have to go, and we have things to do, and it's just a mess. If the subway were accessible, we could get on the subway, we would know which direction we were going, and we could take it. But it's not accessible. Thank you.
The next speaker is Inez Delañez, followed by Kang Chun-jen.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Inés Delanuez, and I'm the Program Director for Grand Coalition of Senior at Grand Street Settlement. So I am here today to speak on behalf of many of the seniors that attend the center. I have heard and complained because the N14 bus is going to be, some of the stops are going to be canceled. So a lot of them feel that this is a disservice to them. They have given to the community, and most of them, the ones that need the services, are already isolated. So most of the people that depend on this bus use walker cane. So please do not limit the stop for the N14 bus. We must keep the N14 bus. Thank you.
The next speaker is Kang Chun Jen, followed by Victor Andrews.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an employee of Green Street Settlement, and I work as a case worker, and my work site is located in 72 Columbia Street, which is known as a naturally occurring retirement community in Lower East Side, Manhattan. There are more than 1,400 low-income seniors residents live in the area, and many of them have limited mobility. Bus M14 help those seniors maintain their quality of life for taking them to go shopping and meet doctor appointment. I cannot expect you to keep running bus M14, but however, I ask you to find alternative service for those seniors if eliminate M14 is your only one option. I believe none of you is willing to see seniors work with workers in cold weather for seeking public transportation, which is far away from the place they live. Thank you.
The next speaker is Victor Andrews.
I'm glad E-Hill's around because about a week ago I was in Queens and Reverend called me and said one of our parishioners fell, so I had to go to the hospital. But he was on his way home, so he called me and he's like, "If I had E-Hill, I'd be able to go do it, but I can't. So I'm sending you." So he sent me. I went to the hospital and everything, and so that's why E-Hill is more important, because you can go as you want and when you need to. But if you're not like he is, if you don't have it when you need to, then it becomes a problem where he has to send me. So yeah, and that should be stayed where it is for at least another 3 years.
Thank you to our speakers. Madam Chair, that concludes the public comment.
Okay, thank you to each of you for your comments. President Byford, I turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd just like to add my welcome to Chair Feinberg and also to Vice Chair Trottenberg, and also thank you, Freddie, for your friendship support and wise counsel while you were Chair. Before I start, I would just like to comment on a few of the points made by speakers. I think a customer-led organisation does that, shows that we're listening. First of all, to Mr. Getz, well, the good news about Hudson Yards is, as you'll hear when we get into the performance part of the discussion, that the 7 line has actually seen a 35% increase in on-time performance now with the end-to-end installation of communications-based train control, CBTC. A couple of other ones that I'll comment on. Jason, you made the comment about the Cherry Blossom Festival. I agree with you, actually. I entirely agree with you. We've had a little debrief within the team over the weekend. We could and should have done better there. We are going to revisit our procedures to make sure that we do have absolute intel on what festivals are going on around the city, to make sure that there's equipment is working properly, escalators, elevators, also to make sure that we have sufficient staffing. So mea culpa on that one. We've arranged a little workshop within the team to make sure we do much better in future. Lisa Daglian from PCAC, I very much appreciate your comments about attacks on transit workers. Again, that was something I dealt with over the weekend. I was very appreciative to Chief De La Torre, with whom I spoke already. The NYPD, the Transit Bureau in particular, are very, very focused on finding out the abhorrent individual that attacked, we believe it's the same person, a couple of our wonderful colleagues. Lots of comment about e-hail. Don't forget, folks, what we said is e-hail is extended to the end of the year. You know, where people are saying don't get rid of it, we haven't. It's extended to the end of the year. We still have that and a number of other things under review. Similarly, we are reviewing the process, or still discussing rather with the community, the Lower East Side. We're still discussing the issue of stops. And my comment about NIMBYs, by the way, was actually more in reference to the installation of infrastructure, where what I was saying was, if we don't no one allows any infrastructure to support improvement in any community, we will not be able to deliver fast forward. That was the context, not specifically the M14. A few other things. I guess actually back to Jason. Thank you for doing the right thing. Yep, you should never ever jump on the tracks if you drop your cell phone. We're here to help. And we will follow up with that agent. That was good feedback. What else have we got? Talked about the M14. To Ms. Chi, I will ask Alex, who's our Senior Advisor for Accessibility, would you please just have a word with Ms. Chi afterwards and go through exactly what happened at that station? Was the level boarding area used? Was it properly signed? Or was the boarding level not correct? Because that does concern me. We do have areas on our platforms that are designed to be level with the train. So, Alex, if you wouldn't mind speaking with Ms. Chi about that. And I think that does it for the speakers. Thank you, as ever, for your comments. We do listen to them. I take copious notes about them.
President Byford, do you know timing on the M14, when decisions will be made on that? That might be helpful.
Sure. So with the M14, it's very much an active debate. We are talking with our colleagues at DOT. So, you know, I want to be completely transparent here. The reason that we are having the debate about stops is because we are trying to speed up service. We get a lot of complaints about service on the 14th Street corridor, but we do understand that it's not a classic east-west route. We do understand that there's a huge community concern on the Lower East Side, and we are still having that discussion. So the die is not yet cast. We will take these further points into consideration, and we will try to come up with the best solution. What I've learned in 30 years of transit, though, is you cannot please everyone. We will try to do the right thing. So, Madam Chair, if I may, I'll now move on to something that gives me great pleasure, actually. Before we begin this month's report, we have a transit hero amongst us today, sitting over there. It's train operator Hopton Kiffin, who is here. Hopton's here with members of his family today. So, a bit of background before I call you up. On Thursday, April the 4th, during the morning rush, a customer at the Hoyt Street 2 and 3 station in Brooklyn used a nearby help point to alert the station agent that a young boy was on the track bed. The agent, another excellent employee, Netta Taylor, notified the rail control center exactly the right thing to do, which alerted all of the crews in the area and the NYPD. And at that point, Hopton, who's a 16-year veteran of NYCT, was operating a northbound Express 5 train headed towards Hoyt Street, and he'd already seen the flash of red from the boy's shirt, and he knew he had to slow down his train, which under normal circumstances would have been speeding through the express track. Mr. Kiffin immediately applied the emergency brake and stopped the train to prevent a fatal collision. He then got down out of the cab and onto the tracks to comfort the boy, who was having difficulty expressing himself, and guided the young lad back onto the cab. Once the boy was safely in the train cab, Mr. Kiffin notified the RCC and proceeded to Borough Hall Station, where a train service supervisor and police were there to meet with the boy and to offer him support. Mr. Kiffin's bravery, sound judgment and patience in an extremely stressful and dangerous situation prevented a tragedy. And keep in mind, and this shows NYCT at its best, shows the professionals that we have. This shows the professionals that we have at Transit, because from the time the station agent was alerted to the time the boy was brought to safety was less than 15 minutes of sound communication and quick action amongst all of our NYCT teams, crews and NYPD, not only preventing a tragedy, but keeping service safely moving for hundreds of customers. And it's this dedication of our outstanding teams and people like Hopton that give me great confidence in our agency and make me very proud as your president. Our people are the most important part of our network. They perform a critical public service for our customers and our city. So Hopeton, I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of Ms. Taylor. I'm proud of the NYPD. I'm proud of the customer who notified our station staff and everyone who worked together for the safety and welfare of this child. So if you'd like to come up to the front, we have an award for you, and I'd be honored to stand and have my picture taken with you. Okay.
Thank you so much. And thank you to Mr. Kiffin for your service. Okay, I'd like to move on to the minutes of March's New York City Transit and Bus Committee meeting. Is there a motion to move the minutes? Second? Opposed? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Are there any changes to the work plan?
Yes, Chair. The homeless outreach report will now be presented in July to the Safety Committee and will be reviewed and discussed at that committee going forward.
Okay. President Byford?
Okay, once again, good morning. And slight change to normal procedure here because we're not sure how, but for some reason my commentary didn't get into the written version of the book. It should have been on directors on notebook. But in case the members of the public didn't hear my commentary or haven't seen it, unusually for this week, if you'll bear with me, I will read it out. It's not very long. So what I want to say first up is my team and I are hugely encouraged by the great news from Albany that congestion pricing was enacted, thereby delivering a great boost for our Fast Forward plan to totally modernize New York City Transit in coming years. With funding secured, we can now advance with upgrading the system, and I'm in the process of populating the remaining key positions to ensure that our master plan now becomes a reality. In the meantime, we continue to extract better performance out of the existing subway, bus, and Access-a-Ride network. On the subway, it's very pleasing to report further good news in terms of performance, which is now at its highest level in 5 years, the result of our intense focus on getting the basics right and our ongoing use of root cause analysis to identify and mitigate the underlying causes of delay. It is to SVP Sally Librera and her team's credit that the stretch target I unilaterally set you, Sally, of 1,800 fewer delay incidents has already been met. And I believe that we can break through the 80% punctuality figure even before the benefits of whole-scale resignaling are realized. Of particular note is the sustained improved punctuality and service reliability on the 7 Flushing line, as I mentioned earlier. Now that CBTC, communications-based train control, has been fully installed end-to-end, the next step for the Flushing line, the number 7, will be to move to full automatic train operation, which we will do in mid-May, and this will provide further performance improvements with the more even train spacing that automation brings and from which the L line already benefits. Our new station management model, launched last September, is really gaining traction and delivering results. The group station managers, 22 of them, the group station manager team is focused on improving the look and feel of their respective stations, both the front, i.e. customer facing, and back of house employee areas. This is being achieved through better maintenance practices delivered by group and area-based maintenance teams and through attention to detail in terms of customer service. I have asked Rochelle Glazier, the Chief Stations Officer, and some of her stations team to give the Commissioners a flavour of the work in progress at an upcoming committee meeting. I'm very proud of what that team is doing out there. Bus performance remains steady, and here again I am confident of near-term improvement as our focus on corridor-specific improvements takes effect. We recently held the kick-off meeting for the third of our borough bus network reviews, the focus now turning to Queens. Meanwhile, Alex Elagudin and the Accessibility Unit continue to work on improvements to the accessibility of our network, and you will hear more about next steps on our e-hail program in a presentation at Wednesday's board meeting. We're now making final preparations for the upcoming L Project tunnel rehabilitation. Staff training is underway and specific attention is going into establishing the new M14 SBS route, albeit with some tweaks still to be done, a key element in our alternative service plan. This will bring great benefit to the 14th Street corridor, which has long suffered from slow journey times due to lack of dedicated bus lanes and the other benefits that SBS brings. And in a moment or two, I will talk to the alternate service plan in more detail for the L project. But Chair, that is my report for this month.
Excellent. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Andy, for your uplifting report as usual. Can we infer from your comments about the Flushing line that come May is when we will see the additional 2 to 3 trains per hour?
There's a number of things that need to be done. We have a switch at Metz Willets Point that needs to be replaced, and that's going to happen in early May. That will enable us to go up from, we say 27, but it's quite in practice it's often 25 trains per hour, but we intend to move to 29 trains per hour, which is a major uplift once ATO is fully in and up and running. We have already trains operating in ATO, but the full service is when you see the benefit. That will be achieved in mid-May once that switch is in and once it's bedded down.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I want to turn the meeting over to Sally Librera for the subway report.
Thank you. I'm pleased to report, as Andy has mentioned, significant and continued performance improvement by Subways in March. Subways exceeded the goal of reducing our monthly delays by 10,000 for the 7th consecutive month in March, and we also exceeded our new 18,000 delay reduction target. On-time performance was 78.2% for the month of March, which is a 5-year high for the system. Weekday delays were 37,667, compared to about 63,000 1 year ago in March on weekdays. All of our customer-focused metrics improved in March relative to last year's March, and also improved relative to their own performance, average performance over the past year. Weekday major incidents dropped to 50, which is among the lowest since the metric was first introduced, and down dramatically from last March when we had 84 major incidents. Service delivered matched its record high of 96.8%, which was last reached in April of 2015. Customer journey time performance was 82.9%, which is a 3.6 percentage point increase from last March and 2.3 percentage points higher than the 12-month average. Mean distance between failures was 134,869 miles, which is up slightly from February, but of particular note, MDBF for the A division in March was at an 8-year high. As we've discussed, reducing operating environment delays, which are the delays that are not tied to a specific incident, has been a major focus of the work that we've been conducting over the past year, and Andy made reference to our efforts to analyze root cause and attack the root cause of incidents on the right-of-way. I'm pleased to report today that although this is still a work in progress, operating delays in the month of March were 1/2, actually less than 1/2, of what they were in May of 2018 when we first announced that category as a new metric. These statistics continue to show the results of targeted investment through the Subway Action Plan in our system. They also show the focus that we're putting on service management under Fast Forward, and all of our efforts are Subway's wide commitment to save seconds for our customers. Thank you.
Perfect. Any questions or comments?
I just want to say hats off. We were hoping to see this kind of improvement, and hats off. It seems to be working. Thank you very much, and let's continue it. It's the right road.
Agreed. Agreed.
Chairman, Chairperson. Thank you. Obviously, I'm a new member of the New York City Transit Board.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm new too.
Sally, I was just asking, and also Andy, if when we meet monthly, if we can get updates too on the the status of the Subway Action Plan. I don't know how often you guys give the board members updates on where we are with this Subway Action Plan, whether we do it as a quick overview or a PowerPoint just to show from a dashboard perspective the progress that we've made in terms of completing that plan. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. That plus the Save Seconds campaign, we'll be happy to update you on the granular elements of that every month.
Anyone else? Okay, great. I'd like to turn to the L Tunnel project, and Jana Lieber has a presentation for us. I think. You got it?
I think many of the board members know a lot of this, but I'm going to quickly recap it. We have some new members of the committee, and obviously we are at the stage where we are now approaching the initiation of the tunnel work. There's been an enormous amount of work going on outside the tunnel and in the stations and in other parts of the project. But we're at the end of this month, we'll be beginning the tunnel work. So this is the last briefing before we begin that. Needless to say, the purpose of the project is to rebuild the infrastructure of the L train so that it's safe and allows us to get the full advantage of the signaling, the modern signaling that the L train has, and other improvements that are being made. Sometimes folks forget this is not a discretionary project of the MTA's. It was triggered by Hurricane Sandy, which obviously did damage to the concrete structures and the power and signal cables. And a lot of the work that's going on is, in fact, resiliency improvements, floodproofing throughout the Manhattan and Brooklyn side, eliminating areas that water can get in, increasing the pump capacity, cable redundancy, to make sure that there isn't a similar kind of shutdown ever again, and moving the pump and fan controls out of harm's way. This is something that every real estate owner in New York did after Hurricane Sandy. The MTA is doing the same thing with its tunnels. Along the way, we are adding power so that we can support the larger volumes of trains, again, enabled by CBTC. Improvements to the trackage and other systems will allow us to get maximum efficiency out of that. We are improving clearances, something Andrew will understand, so that we can run trains even faster and, again, take maximum advantage of the capacity benefits of CBTC. Switch upgrades at 3rd Avenue and Bedford Avenue are part of that. And there are a ton of station upgrades as well. On the L train, I think folks know that 6th Avenue, Union Square, 1st Avenue, Bedford, Lorimer are all getting improvements. I'll show you some of those, some of the improvements calling. The J and the Z line and several stations are getting it. The G line is getting it, and we're doing a ton of state of good repair work, taking advantage of this, this project to get a lot of state of good repair work, which is in the normal course of the capital program done. Just a couple of highlights. 1st Avenue Station, where we are adding an entrance at Avenue A. Roofs poured on both sides of the street. The elevator shafts are taking place, stairs taking shaft. All of this work is happening. In fact, it's related to the fact that we eliminated so much of the demolition that was associated with the full closure idea, because we don't have to use this area for debris removal. This was going to be the area where we took all the debris out of the tunnel and trucked it all out. That doesn't have to be done. As a result, we're able to advance this work much more quickly. I mentioned before the power upgrades and how important that is going to be to to future service on the L train. This is the Avenue B substation. Again, more trains need more power. Without getting into too much detail, excavation is complete, and as you could see, even since I reported last month, the steel rebar, the concrete, the steel that will support the full concrete application is well along, and there were some initial concerns about swampy conditions close to the water, below grade groundwater. We've overcome that, and this project is very much on schedule. I mentioned earlier station upgrades. The Bedford Avenue, which is one of the key stations for this whole project, you see those are new stairways. The mezzanine is being extended to, again, improve circulation, improve access, and so we're actually been able to put into use 2 of the new stairways. Obviously, we still have the tile to apply and some of the finishes, but you can see we're far along. There's another shot of the Driggs Avenue, the eastern end of that station, and a new stairway well along, and it's all estimated to be completed by the end of May. Further out on the L train at Broadway Junction and Marcy, there are major stairway and accessibility improvements that are underway. Again, new stairs, relocation of stairs. And Marcy Avenue, we anticipate being able to open those stairs, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking at my colleagues at Transit, before the tunnel work begins on the 26th. That's the current plan, if I'm not mistaken. So Andy confirms. So we're going to begin tunnel construction starting this week with weeknight prep work. During the weeknight shutdowns, most of what we get done is preparatory in nature rather than the heavier volume of construction you do with the weekend outages, even though they're only single-track outages. Weekend single-track construction starts, as I said, the 26th of this month and continues the first weekend until the 29th, Monday. And I think, as I've informed the board, we're anticipating that this is going to be, we initially gave an estimate that this was going to be a 15 to 20-month schedule. We think it's going to be closer to 15, and now placing it in the 15 to 18-month range. And we're very close to getting all the contracting side of this completed. And this is a project that's ready to go. We've got a great team, and especially with the leadership that Andy and everybody in Transit has given, and the creation of a single unitary construction team, I'm confident we're going to be able to knock it out in schedule and in budget.
Comments or questions? Yeah.
Just one other quick thing then, Chair. Obviously, while the work's going on, we've got to keep New York moving. We've got to keep people moving along that corridor. The good news being, of course, that as Jano has described, that for 90% of the riders, there is no change because the line remains open. It's nights and weekends where we have to provide an alternate service plan. So we've put together a brochure. It's this brochure here. You can see that. You can actually pick up copies. Naomi, they're just outside, right? There's a whole bunch of these brochures. Please do pick them up. A number of us were out on the weekend. We had a bus, and we had ambassadors out at places like First Avenue yesterday handing out these leaflets, and these describe in detail the various alternate means of getting to and from between Brooklyn and Manhattan, including the new Williamsburg link that we've created, B91 and 92 buses every 3 minutes, which take you down to the J and the M line. We've also got detail in here about other extra subway service lines like the M, the G, and the 7, and also detail about what the actual service will be, which will be a 20-minute headway on nights and also over the weekend. So there's a comprehensive map in there that shows you what the plan looks like. We're all geared up. We're all ready. We've done extensive training with our excellent on station staff and train service staff. Thank you, Judy, for you and your colleagues, all your work on that. Thank you also in advance to NYPD, whose help's going to be invaluable as we keep people moving and keep the station safe overnight, and get people from A to B. So we're ready for it, not long now.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I'd like to turn the conversation over to Derek Eyrick for the bus and paratransit report.
Good morning. Overall bus performance was stable in the month of March, as we've seen in most of our customer-facing metrics. We've seen improvements, and more specifically in fleet reliability. MDBF, we saw a 26% improvement in mean distance between failures. An important milestone this month, as Andy referenced early, on April 5th, there was the launch of the new Queens network redesign. We had a kickoff meeting with over 40 elected officials at Borough Hall that was attended by myself, Chairman Foy, Andy Byford, Commissioner Trottenberg. And we are excited and look forward to working closely with our colleagues at NYCDOT, NYPD, and the elected officials, and of course with our labor partners. Another integral part of Fast Forward is the improvement of bus service along targeted corridors. To date, bus lane enforcement efforts by NYPD has yielded over 18,000 bus lane parking and movement violations, almost double the violations for the same period last year, and we thank you. And over 86,000 bus stop parking violations, an 8% increase over the same period last year, and we thank you. Finally, Earth Day is on April 22nd, and we will be showcasing our zero-emissions all-electric bus fleet. Currently, we have 10 electric buses in service, with another 15 planned for delivery by the end of the year, and 45 more in this current capital program. And that sets the stage and is a precursor of a 500 bus purchase in the next program as part of Fast Forward. On to paratransit. Performance in February remained stable amidst a 20% growth in trips and ridership, and most of that growth was primarily due to e-hail. We continue to transition to our enhanced broker service, which began last month. While we expect to experience some transitional issues in the short term as the new service fully ramps up, we believe that the enhanced broker service will provide our customers with many benefits going forward. This includes more trips by taxi and for-hire vehicles, the ability to use taxis for door-to-door assisted service by specially trained operators, and the ability to book and track the location of vehicles via the My AAR feature in the My MTA app. As a reminder, we are extending our popular on-demand e-hail service pilot program with the current participants from April 30th through the end of this year, and that completes my report.
Thank you, Daryl. Questions or comments? Okay, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Alex Elagudin for the accessibility update.
Thank you so much. The system-wide accessibility team continues to roll out new trainings and related initiatives. We are doing in-person accessibility and disability engagement trainings for key employees across the agency, where they get to hear directly from transit riders with disabilities. These in-person deep dive trainings are key to driving long-term cultural change. Just in the last month or so, we have done trainings for all our group station managers, for our elevator and escalator maintainers, and many others. Similarly, we are starting to implement an online ADA sensitivity training that will eventually reach all New York City Transit employees, which is a key accessibility commitment of the Fast Forward plan. Further, we are continuing to survey our existing accessible stations to make sure that all our existing accessible features are up to par and working properly, including wayfinding and signage. We have finished surveys at 20 accessible stations and already starting to implement changes and fixes throughout different divisions in the agency. Eventually, we hope to go survey all of our existing stations and make sure that our existing stock of accessibility features is working properly. We have continued to work with MTA IT and our elevator units to make sure that our elevator communications about availability and outages is accurate and performing as close to real time as we can. And just this last month, we've made some major tweaks to how those are reported, and customers on their end should be seeing better reporting shortly. Lastly, I want to recognize our partners at the New York City Department of Transportation and the Department of City Planning, who are increasingly engaged with us when it comes to planning future ADA projects. We have numerous conversations on zoning, real estate acquisitions, real estate developments, and much more, all of which we are sure will yield major results in our commitment to making more stations accessible in the future. And lastly, we have a great set of Q2 commitments coming out shortly, I believe today or tomorrow, with many accessibility items that are really exciting and pushing our agenda forward. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Yep. Larry?
Yes, Commissioner Feinberg. I think one of the things that would be helpful and useful going forward, and I ask President Byford for his cooperation on this, is that I agree with you, training is very important. It's an important tool to improving management within the agency. But I think equally, if not more important, is that in every initiative that we have or begin, that there be performance metrics tied to those initiatives for the board to fully understand whatever the goals and objectives are of each initiative, whether it's training or in some other category, and to have some way of measuring what the end results of that training or initiative is. So there's goals and objectives in which we can then measure and monitor to see how whatever the original goal was to initiate something, we could see how far along you've gotten and whether or not you're meeting those goals and objectives, and if there's problems or issues, what they are. Because it's all about improving customer service and the experience for our customers. Kudos that we've made a lot of progress. We still need to make more progress. I'm confident that we'll get there, but I would just appreciate it if, you know, whether we want to follow the NYPD CompStat model or our own model, I would just like to see that there's some dashboard of performance metrics to show what our goals and objectives are and the progress that we're making in each one of them.
Sure, I'll give some thought to that. I mean, the objective is to provide better service to accessorized and other mobility impaired users. So in many ways, the key objective is to get all 50,000 people trained, and that's an easy metric to measure. The more difficult thing to measure is the effectiveness of that training, I guess, because it's kind of subjective. It will largely link to customer satisfaction on the part of our accessorized and other users. But let me give that some thought, and we'll come back to you.
And if I may add something briefly, some of our trainings we can absolutely track how many people have gone through it, but I think we have so many diverse training initiatives. Some are half-an-hour online training, some are 3-hour in-person training, some are trainings with our units directly where we're sending daily highlights on accessibility topics to individuals' phones. Right, we don't always have the ability to pull operators off the road or frontline staff. But some of the other items that we might be able to track is reductions in complaints and things of that nature, which we absolutely will. Our vision for training is it is a 5 to 10 year goal in terms of cultural change. I don't think anybody's going to take a half-an-hour accessibility training and be ready. We want training to support, customer service on the ground where people have the best tools that they need. So it's a long haul, and it's a major quick win that President Byford has asked us to deliver on. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to recognize Sarah Meyer for the Strategy and Customer Experience Report.
Great. Hi, guys. So quick updates today. This month, we reported on our Q1 customer commitment, which you can find at new.mta.info/customer commitment. We met 21 of our 24 goals in Q1. For those who are unfamiliar with this initiative, these are time-bound improvements that our customers can see, can feel, can hear. You can see the full list on our webpage, but here are some quick updates. As Sally reported, service is moving faster, and that's because in part, Subway's identified 53 locations where speed limits could be increased, and they also fall within our safety guidelines. CPM also fully restored service at 3 stations after completing much-needed structural repair at 167th Street, 39th Avenue, and Broadway on the Astoria line. On buses, we added off-peak service on the S93 bus route, which now runs every 12 minutes in Staten Island. And buses also exceeded their Q1 goal, placing 400 onboard customer information screens on buses. The devices announce next stop, both audibly and visually. Lastly, we upgraded and modernized our Lost and Found facilities located at 34th Street in the Penn Station complex. We also dramatically expanded the daily customer contact hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., up from very limited availability Monday through Friday. So thank you very much to our staff, and we were able to do that with very, very limited budget. So really appreciate our quick thinking and resourcefulness. The Q2's customer commitment with 18 new initiatives is now live on the website, as Alex mentioned. On the customer communication side, we sent over 16,000 proactive messages this month. Our responses to customers on social media were up over 60% compared to March 2018. Thank you very much to our hardworking staff at the Rail Control Center. MetroCard complaints were down 27% year over year, continuing a decreasing trend we've been seeing. Commendations about subway and bus service were up 60% and 33% respectively. Bus and Access-a-Ride complaints per journey were up slightly at 10% and 16% versus March 2018. And our operations teams are targeting key complaint areas to address our customer concerns. We're also pleased in the back of the board book to present the results of our Q1 customer count quarterly survey. This takes into account subway and bus performance. The results are all moving in the right direction. Subway riders told us they're seeing positive changes with improvement ratings in overall service and in station environment. Overall satisfaction was at 61.4%, a 6.1% increase from last quarter, and a 9.8% increase from Q3 2018. Satisfaction within stations was at 70%, up 4.4% from Q4 2018, and 7.3% from Q3 2018. On the bus side, customer satisfaction for local and select bus service remains steady at 57.7%. Similarly, overall service satisfaction for express bus customers remain consistent at 64.1%. We did see improvements in waiting time, travel time, and number of unexpected delays. Satisfaction also increased for all 8 onboard experience attributes, including cleanliness, crowding, and bus operators, I should say, and service delay and communications was up 5%. You can find the full customer count survey satisfaction report in the back of the board book, and I thank you.
Comments or questions? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sarah, I hope my comments about the bus screens worked its way down to you, but they're giving out erroneous information on the M86. The screen said at Central Park West you could transfer to the B line, but no mention of the C. At 86th and Lex, it mentioned the 4 and 5, but no 6. And M11 at 97th and Columbus said you could transfer to a 2, but no 1 or 3, and no mention at all of this B and C, which are actually closer. So whoever did the software, I think, needs a rewrite.
Correct. We did address those issues. We're using a very antiquated software system for this. We're moving to a new one. The old one's called ATIS. The new one's called the Open Trip Planner. Moving forward, increasing our QA on those screens now that we can see what the data says. So it's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, this concludes the customer service portion of the President's report. I'd like to recognize Robert Deal for the safety report.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'd just like to bring up some highlights. One is that included in the monthly report is actually some photos of the Office of System Safety meeting with the New York State Public Transportation Safety Board, PTSB. And this was an initial meeting after the PTSB was safety certified by the FTA. This is important because the PTSB is actually our oversight now agency to look at safety. And we're looking forward to working with them, especially as we start to transition to an agency safety plan. Subway fires declined by 21% when comparing them to the rolling 12-month period. Most of our statistics are either flat or have decreases, except for bus collisions and customer accidents. In regards to both of them, and to try to reduce these increases, Bus Safety and Training Unit has actually increased communication with all levels of the Department of Buses. That includes training for bus operators about boarding and alighting in bus stops, as well as actions of bus movement, which seems to be where we seem to have some disconnect at time. As buses are moving right away, people are not aware of it, or they get jolted, and that seems to be giving us a lot of injuries. All right, so we're really looking at that. And the last thing that I would have is that I want to say thank you to the NYPD, especially Chief Delatorre. We started a very, very small pilot last week, including members of NYPD working on buses doing fare evasion. And I'm very happy that that has occurred. All right, I'd like to say thank you, Inspector. All right. And that concludes my safety report if there's any questions.
So in bus movement injuries, you're saying that someone on the bus who falls when the bus moves?
Yes, it seems to be that as bus movement occurs, people are either not paying attention.
Okay.
We've seen it a lot of times where even our own employees at times that have been riding the buses, we look for 3 points of contact. Because if you only have 2 points of contacts, whether it's just one arm, one leg, or two legs, you know, sometimes as the bus jerks, moves forward, or comes to a stop, people actually move forward.
Right.
So with those 3 points of contact, we really get, you know, someone to be steady.
Right, got it. And can you provide us with an update on the fare evasion actions that you reported on last month?
Sure. Well, right now we're in a couple of different processes.
Yep.
The first one is really with subway fare evasion. We're right now scheduling for the fare array monitors that'll actually be put above a certain amount of stations. Okay, this is kind of like I call it the Best Buy situation, where you're going to be walking in and you're actually going to view yourself going up to a fare array. So that can deter people, especially if they're thinking about trying to avoid the fare. We're working on gates as far as making sure that as they close, that they stay closed, as opposed to being maybe jiggled open. We're looking also at the alarms. We have put alarms back on to 10 stations. And we're doing some, I guess you would say, some testing to actually see what effect that has. You got to realize that, you know, these alarms were turned off in 2014, and behavior modification now has to take grip. All right, people are now used to the alarms not being on, so it's going to take a little while for them to realize that they are on and that they can't go through the doors. All right, with bus fare evasion, again, we have this small pilot that we're going to continue with, and right now it's at that infancy stage that we're just getting to learn to work with the NYPD and how we're going to develop from there.
Bob, if I might just add to that, a couple of other things. Again, thank you, NYPD. We have a lot more presence in and around gate arrays, so that's a combination of our own staff plus NYPD. Again, the aim being just to be crystal clear and for the avoidance of doubt. We actually don't want to arrest anyone. We don't want to criminalize people. What we want to do is deter chances from just thinking, oh, the gate's open, I'll just pop through it. Recidivists, hardline recidivists, will probably still try to evade the fare, and they will be addressed by NYPD. But what we're trying to do is really get it into everyone's head that you really need to pay the fare. It's not a free system, be that on the bus or on the train. And so to actually have a visible deterrent is a good thing, because we want people to get into that mindset that don't even risk it. The chances are you may well be intercepted.
It is all about behavior modification. It's about getting people to understand that they can have a penalty if they're going to actually beat the fare.
Can I ask Bob a question?
Please.
So I understand you're turning on the alarms that had been turned off years ago. Are you actually installing alarms in all exit gates?
No. This right now is just a pilot to see what type of effect that it has. You know, like I said, they were turned off at one point, but it was turned off when fare evasion was at a lower number.
It was also turned off because of the complaints of some booth agents.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think there were other complaints also. But.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. One question I have. At some point, I would like, if we can get this done in the next week or two, I would love a briefing on our drug testing program.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I want to turn the discussion over to Inspector, is it Porteous?
Porteous, yes.
Porteous, I'm sorry, for the crime report.
Good morning, everyone. Chief Delatorre sends his regrets that he could not be here this morning. My name is Inspector Ray Porteous. I'm the commanding officer of the Transit Bureau Special Operations Division. Year to date, total major felonies in transit are down 0.5%, with 3 fewer incidents for the year. During the month of March, there were 10 fewer incidents, 10 fewer major felonies than during the same month last year, a 5.5% decline. Most notably, robbery complaints decreased by 26%, with 12 fewer victims. There were 4 additional felony assaults and 1 less grand larceny. During the month of March, 34% of the total major felonies occurred in Manhattan, 35% in Brooklyn, 18% in the Bronx, and 13% in Queens. Given that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I appreciate the opportunity to mention some of the excellent patrol and investigative work being done to encourage victims to report sexually motivated crimes so we can investigate them thoroughly. On the morning of April 9th, officers from the Anti-Terrorism Unit intervened on behalf of a teenage female passenger when they arrested 23-year-old Lavine Hamilton for groping her on a southbound 6 train at Grand Central Station. With the assistance of our Transit Special Victims Squad, Mr. Hamilton, a felon and repeat sexual offender, was charged with persistent sex abuse and forcible touching and remains in custody. Just to give you an update, I know President Byford mentioned the assault on the MTA workers. Those crimes, one happened up on the train at 138 and Brook Avenue, where the conductor was a perpetrator threw some urine in her face. That person flees out of the station, probably walks about a half a mile up to the Grand Concourse in front of 250 Grand Concourse. He encounters a bus driver that's parked and discharging some passengers. The perpetrator throws a cup of urine on her as well. Those crimes are being investigated by the 4-0 Detective Squad and our Transit Robbery Squad. We did obtain some video from the bus. We have a person of interest that went out to the, was released to the media and also to social media, and should be noted that that video was obtained from the external camera for the bus. The clarity is excellent, and we'll hope to make a caller in short order. We'll keep you updated.
Excellent. Thank you. Comments or questions, Andrew?
Yes, hi. I noticed a 500% increase in aggravated harassment. Can you say what crimes that entails?
That would be probably particularly hate crimes. We're up in hate crimes, as you can see from the book. We're up 26 versus 12. We're up 14 hate crimes. Aggravated harassment falls under that. Okay. But majority of the hate crimes are graffiti related. So of those 26, 20 are graffiti related. 17 are swastikas. We also have 1 noose, 1 anti-police, and 1 anti-Semitic. And they're thoroughly being investigated by our Hate Crimes Task Force in conjunction. We also do follow-ups with our neighbor policing, our NCOs, the general station managers. We kind of work together and try to, get to some results.
Thank you.
I mean, we have cameras in most of these stations, or we've just pulled that footage so that, and we're capturing the graffiti criminals?
Yes, for the most part, most of the stations have cameras. But some of these crimes aren't graffiti related either. We do have 4 arrests on like assaults and stuff like that, but the cameras are a big proponent of it. We also have other cameras that we can look at as well, temporary cameras. So if we see any kind of locations that keep repeating, we'll try to get cameras installed there.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I want to turn the discussion the financial and ridership reports.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief. NYCT February preliminary results are as follows. Year-to-date ridership was 0.5% below budget. The average weekday ridership for the 12 months ending February 2019 compared to February 2018 was 2.9%. The weekend version of that was 3.5% lower. Year-to-date fare box revenue was $1 million above budget. Non-reimbursable expenses were under budget by $25 million. On the MTA bus side, the average weekday ridership was 0.3% lower. The fare box revenue was $2.4 million below budget, and the operating expenses were below budget by $6.7 million. In addition, this month, MTA Chairman and CEO Pat Foy requested a report on NYCT's year-to-date financial performance in the form of operating loss or deficit. Through the end of March, NYCT has generated $1.564 billion in revenue and spent $2.496 billion for a net operating loss of $932 million. Due to slightly lower than expected revenues and lower than expected expenditures, this operating loss through March is lower than what is assumed in the adopted budget. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
I seem to be the only one asking. So something that flew off the, and it's not transit, it's Staten Island Railway, a 37% drop in ridership. Was there extra work going on the railway this month or last month that would precipitate a 37% drop in ridership?
I don't believe so, but Sally?
I'm not aware of any significant change in the ridership. We'll need to just look at those numbers.
Right here. Thank you.
Comments or questions, anything else? Okay, I want to turn the discussion over to Alok Saha for the capital program status report.
Thank you. In March, we actually awarded 15 projects, roughly about $348 million. This includes the station reconstructions and the AD accessibility at the Times Square shuttle for $202 million. This is the phase 3 of the projects, the Times Square complex. Once we complete the projects, entire complex will be AD accessible. We also awarded a Sandy projects. This is 6-station internal station hardening. Essentially, we are hardening those communication room and the signal rooms. So therefore, any flooding situation, this critical room will be protected. That is for about $15 million. In March, we completed 20 projects for $780 million. This includes the, we all talked about the Flushing CBDC, about $560 million. This is essentially allow us to improve our capacity as well as the service reliability, which is in consistency with our fast forward goals. We also completed 3 stations in Sea Beach line, that about $131 million. This concludes the capital program report.
Questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much. This concludes the overall President's report. Any questions or comments on the report overall? Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Steve to present the procurement package. But before I do that, one note I want to make is I think we've got two different procurements in here. One is a Siemens procurement, which based on the last committee meeting chaired by Susan, I have some concerns about. And so I've suggested that we pull that procurement from this conversation and that we that you offer briefings and any Q&A that committee members may have separately, and then we can deal with it later. I think given what we saw in the last committee meeting, and Susan, I want to acknowledge you, I think we're all in a place where we think more questions need to be answered before we move ahead with that procurement.
Commissioner Feinberg.
Thank you.
If we need a resolution or a second, I would second that, your recommendation that we pull that procurement from here. As a new board member, I've heard a lot of very disturbing things regarding Siemens and Bombardier's performance when it comes to PTC. I'm extremely frustrated and disturbed by what I've heard, and as far from where I'm coming from, I don't want to see us do any future business with Siemens and Bombardier when I view them screwing over the ridership of the Long Island Railroad and Metro North by their gross negligence and incompetence in the way their lack of performance on PTC. Commissioner Metzger and now Commissioner Law, they've done a great job, but they're not responsible for overseeing the day-to-day implementation of PTC. When we first approved this, I made it clear to the highest levels here at the MTA that we needed to stay on top of this, that we needed to make sure that this initiative got implemented on time, and to put the right people and the best people in charge of this thing, because this has to go with the safety of the ridership. And I don't want to hear, and I don't think anyone else wants to hear about fatalities and injuries regarding an incident or accident, not only on our New York City subways or buses, but also on our commuter rails. And I also would ask that you and others look into whether or not the debarment language statute that was put in the state budget in the past applies to Siemens and Bombardier and their failures to properly implement the antennas and the software and the other things. And from my perspective, I don't want to see, first, maybe we should cancel the contract and rebid it. That I would ask you to take a look at with Vice Chair Commissioner Trottenberg. Second, I would look at whether or not they should be debarred from any future stuff. Third is, I would ask whether we invest state or city pension funds in either one of these companies. I know Siemens is a public company, and if we do, we should remove our pension funds from these companies. And three is, or four or five or six, I'll just kind of keep going here for another minute. I want to see, and I would ask you and I would ask Commissioner Metzger to request that the CEOs of Siemens and Bombardier come before this board and explain to us their screw-ups, explain to us what they're going to do to ensure that this project is going to be done correctly and on time, that they're going to fix all the quality assurance and quality control problems that have occurred by their companies and their staff, right, under their watch, because I have no trust and no confidence that they know what they're doing, that they're committed to getting this done. And until, I'm convinced, and hopefully other commissioners are convinced, we shouldn't be doing any more business with them. And the other thing is, I want to say to MTA staff, you're also accountable for this, okay? As far as I'm concerned, I don't know if the Inspector General has been involved with this, right? If he hasn't, he should have been, and there should have been a report. But I've made it clear, and I've said this over and over again, the past is not going to be the future when it comes to the way this agency runs and the way this agency is going to restore trust and confidence to the ridership and users of our system. It's all going to be about accountability and responsibility. Who's accountable? Who's responsible? There's no surprise here. I made it clear. I know Commissioner Metzger's made it clear. Commissioner Zuckerman made it clear how important PTC was for the ridership of the commuter rails, Long Island Railroad, and Metro North. And not only has Siemens and Bombardier failed them, we have failed them as an agency by not keeping this project on time and not giving people the trust and confidence that the system that's supposed to go in place is going to work properly to increase and ensure the safety when they ride our commuter rails, the largest commuter rail, I believe, in the United States. And if Siemens and Bombardier is not willing to put the resources and the proper staff to oversee getting this done, then we should cancel this contract, find a new vendor. I don't want to hear excuses anymore that there's always one or two vendors in the business, and if we don't do business with them, then we can't move forward. We'll go find somebody that can do this. But I want to see the CEOs come before this board so we can ask them questions. I want to see if they're committed to doing the right thing and to apologize, because that's what I would want to see Siemens and Bombardier do. They owe the commuters and the ridership of the MTA, as well as the taxpayers of the state of New York, an apology for their screw-ups. Thank you.
First, thank you to the board for its support. I do want Larry to know that we have been discussing the debarment wording, and that hasn't been forgotten. I also want to assure you that we are keeping close track of all the additional costs that our people have been put to. We have quality control observers now in the plants, which is an unprecedented situation for us. We have spoken with Bombardier and Siemens not once, twice. We've asked them to come before the committee, the last one this morning, and I believe you heard some of that. I think the right thing to do is to ask them to come to a full board meeting rather than just the committee meeting. I appreciate, Sarah, that you are looking into having more briefings. I do think it's necessary for us to understand fully exactly what products and services we are getting from our contractors when one of their projects has caused us such grief. And I want to say again what I said this morning, and Neil and I have been saying for many years now. We promised our riders that we would get this completed on schedule, and we intend to do so, one way or another. And I hope that everybody feels the same way, and we all pull together on it, because that's what it takes at this point. Apparently we have a new schedule that was provided late Friday. I will have a report to the working committee, and I'd be happy to make that available to the whole board. Hopefully the end of this week, when they have an opportunity to look at it. I really appreciate your words. Thank you.
And Commissioner, I just want to make sure you understand, I think you do a great job. You're always on top of everything. My comments were not directed, hopefully, to you or any other member of the Metro North Long Island Railroad Committee. You know, your volunteer board members, there's only so much that you can do. I really think it's an embarrassment to Siemens that we have to send quality control inspectors to babysit and monitor them. And I also think it's unacceptable for the CEOs of these two companies, whether it's just Siemens alone or also Bombardier, to send their minions here to answer questions and give us. I want to see the CEOs of these two companies. If we are one of their largest clients, if here, not only probably in the United States and the world, if we're not important enough to them, because they won't show, then we shouldn't be doing business with them anymore. And I want to hear them on the record ensure us that whatever new schedules are put together, they're going to put all the resources necessary, and they're going to tell us who the people are that are going to be charged of making sure that there's no more software glitches, no more antenna problems, no more anything problems, and that the schedule that they promised to live by to get this done, they're going to make sure personally, as the CEO of the company, that it's going to get done.
Larry, I take no offense. I understand that this is an important issue. I do want to say that the first meeting that we had with these contractors had individuals that I think you would like to see at the board meeting. I specifically asked to see more technical people because I felt that I was getting calming platitudes the first time we spoke to their leadership, and I wanted to hear from those who were actually doing the construction, overseeing the manufacture of this equipment, could be here and answer our questions, even down to whether it's soldered or bolted, which finally we got to. Thank you very much.
I still want to, yeah, I appreciate everything you're saying, but I would ask that somehow, Madam Chair, either through Pat Foy or some other thing, that we directly contact the CEOs and tell them we want them here either for a May committee meeting or the May board meeting, you know, whatever. I would like to see them here and ask them directly.
I feel strongly that it needs to be before the whole board because Siemens and Bombardier have contracts that go way beyond just the railroads.
Yeah. I agree. So first of all, thank you for your leadership on this. I agree it should be in front of the whole board. Everyone on the board is interested in it, and not everyone on the board is on your committee. So I, for example, have spent more years of my life than I ever would have guessed working on PTC, and I'm not on your committee. So I would love to be a part of that conversation. I heard you say you've tried to call both of those companies in front of you twice, and they have not. And they have appeared. They have appeared. Okay. But and Commissioner Schwartz, I completely agree that we should contact the companies and ask them to come in front of the entire board. And so we'll, you know, in our break or whatever, we'll sort out what the best way is to do that. But, you know, all of these committees have these companies, have business with these companies. And I'm here to tell you that PTC deadline is coming, and no one's getting past it, and no one should get past it because because it is important technology that will prevent an accident. And so we're not going to be put in a position where we're arguing for an extension to the deadline because the companies who have agreed to work with us on this have completely missed the ball. I assume that Tom or others are looking at how to claw back costs from the fact that we've had to send our own staff into their facilities to make sure that they're doing the quality control. Okay, all right, so that's good. Andrew, please go ahead.
I'd like to point out that we've now pulled 2 contracts that we would have normally expected to approve to Siemens today, one for Long Island Railroad and now one for transit. That makes a statement, and I'm happy that it is. And I also think that the full board should have the benefit of a discussion.
So in the case of the railroads, it was a PTC issue. What is before the Transit Committee today is a CBTC for the R179 and
Correct.
R211 fleets. If they're bad actors, they're bad actors,
Correct.
obviously.
Correct.
How will this not ratifying that contract affect the timeline of installation for those 2 car fleets?
I'm happy
These,
to defer
don't
to
forget,
others.
folks, these are ratifications, not awards. These are ratifications. I mean, the one I would be most concerned about is the R211 because Kawasaki are on critical path to know what the CBTC package will be. That, don't forget, is Thales, not Siemens.
Okay, comments or questions?
As a new board member, so from an organizational perspective inside of the MTA, who is the CTO or the folks inside the organization who are overseeing the project, who have the technical expertise to communicate directly with Bombardier and Siemens from an engineering perspective? Because it's fine to appear in front of the board, and I agree from a responsibility standpoint that makes sense, but these are highly technical matters that require people on the MTA side to have the expertise to deal with them.
Actually, we've had Ronnie dealing with it, we've had Kathy Rinaldi dealing with it, and we've had 2 technical experts, Debbie Chin and Anthony Devora, one each from Long Island Railroad and Metro North. They have had a full support staff.
Got it.
We have a working group on PTC. Working group speaks with the technical staff on a monthly basis. It's chaired by Ronnie. And the more we heard, the more the committee members in the working group felt we really needed to escalate this to the board or to the committee. And we did that. We started doing that in February. That's when they first appeared before us. And then they were before us again today for a similar but different issue.
Commissioner Lynn, let me just kind of add my perspective. I haven't been on the board as long as Commissioner Metzger, but long enough. One of the things that we tried to accomplish last year, I worked with Commissioner Trottenberg and former Commissioner Reckler. We had a working cost containment group along with Jana Lieber to come up with recommendations to increase competition in the industry, because unfortunately we have very few players and we seem to be dealing with the same bad actors who come up with the same excuses, with the same number of change orders, with the same number of delays. And Siemens and Bombardier fall into that category of bad actors who just have a myriad of excuses. And the reason why I'm pushing so hard on the CEOs and being as militant as I am is because only they have the power and authority to put the necessary resources and put the appropriate people in charge of this project from within their company. And if they're not willing to show and they give us phony excuses about they got busy schedules and they're traveling all over the place, then I say they're sending a very loud and clear message to our commuters, screw you, and I say screw them. And that's why I appreciate the fact that the governor and the state legislature agreed in this last budget to put in this debarment language, because that's the stick that we need to tell these contractors, if you're not going to get projects done that you bid on time and on budget, you're not going to do business with this agency any longer. So I'm not against having technical people at these meetings, but they're not in charge, right? And I want to make sure that going forward, there's no further delays, there's no more excuses, and that I want to get these CEOs on record as saying they will ensure us, this agency and the commuters and the state, the city, that they're going to get this project done on time, right? And they can assure us that the quality and the safety that goes into these projects will be of the highest standard. So every time someone gets on a Long Island Railroad train or Metro North train, they can ensure that their safety is increased and improved.
Let's not forget Bombardier was over 2 years late with
Yeah.
our 179 deliveries, which caused us to keep an old, outdated fleet in place for a much longer period of time.
Anything else? The transportation industrial complex is real. Okay. All right. So actually, we'll turn it over to Steve now to talk about the other procurement.
Thank you. Good afternoon. With the removal of that particular action, the procurement package has one New York City Transit procurement action totaling approximately $1.25 million in expenditures. The lone item is the award of a competitively solicited 5-year consulting contract for hydrological services to FPM Engineering Group, again in the amount of $1.25 million. The contract is used to review groundwater data, evaluate borings and other hydrological materials, as well as analyze water conditions at various structures, all in support of the capital program. 2 proposals were received, and the selection committee unanimously selected FPM based on their extensive experience and favorable pricing. I ask for your approval of that item.
Sorry, do I need to make a movement to actually withdraw the Siemens procurement? Sorry. Okay. First. Okay, great. All right. Freddie moved that. Do we have a second? Second. Okay. Any conversation about that? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Steve. Okay. Andy, I want to move back to you for the standard follow-up report.
Sure. There's 2 standard follow-up reports, Commissioners, in the TA book this month, those being the MetroCard report and the quarterly customer satisfaction report, Chair, which you heard Sarah brief us on earlier. I do commend those to you. They're worth reading. It's good news. Thank you.
Okay. Comments or questions?
One question about the customer report. I noticed not one shuttle was surveyed. Is there a reason for that?
I'll go back and look at the data and make sure that wasn't omitted. But we do have about 11,000 comments about our services. So I wonder if
just the lines that
the
were
shuttle.
not listed in the
right.
Okay.
Noted. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we up to date on any outstanding action items?
Yeah. Yes, Chair, we are.
Okay. Are there any final questions regarding the New York City Transit and Bus Committee agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.